Welcome to the Pathways to Prosperity podcast, where we explore personal, professional, and financial success stories of top achievers. Let's dive in.
Hey guys, welcome to Pathways to Prosperity for Entrepreneurs, where we spotlight trailblazers reshaping industries and communities. Today we're joined with Sean Corrigan, Executive Vice President of Special Operations Warrior Foundation. Sean leads pivotal educational and fundraising initiatives to support children of fallen operations personnel, and Medal of Honor recipients. Dive in as we discuss Sean's insights and his impactful workshop in stewardship. So, how you doing, Sean? How you been?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for even serving our country, and I know this is a great, it's very impactful. It's very impactful, and I would love to really share like your vision that you've always done. So, can you possibly give us a quick snapshot of your business?
Sure. Yeah. I served in the Army for 30 years, and out of that 30 years, about 26 of them in special operations. So after I retired, I was looking for something that would continue to be meaningful, a job with a purpose, with some values that I could get behind. And my last boss, when I was active duty, asked me to join at Special Operations Warrior Foundation. He's Major General Clay Hutmacher. He was the Director of Operations at U.S. Special Operations Command, and I was his J3X, one of his direct reports. We had served together numerous times over our careers, and I knew about Special Operations Warrior Foundation. It's been around a long time, since 1980 in one form or fashion. It kind of started with the hostage rescue attempt in Iran and grew over time. So I was familiar with it because while I was active duty, we, especially during Iraq and Afghanistan, we lost several personnel. And I knew that there was this organization that would take care of their kids' education costs. And so now I'm with the foundation as executive vice president. I handle sort of the business operations, the money coming in, the money going out. One of our key principles is stewardship. People donate money to the foundation to take care of those kids, and so we have to use as much as humanly possible towards that end, and not waste and not get out of our lane. So education is our lane, all the way from preschool, funding preschool for 2 to 5 year olds, and then private school tuition assistance for K through 12, college prep program, and then full college tuition, room, board, all expenses for any school that the kids get into. And so to give you a scope of kind of the size of that effort, last year we spent just under $6 million on college alone.
Wow.
And of course, all the other education programs add up to, we had over 200 kids in college last year, and another 900 kids somewhere younger than that. Mm-hmm. In fact, our youngest student isn't even born yet. His father was killed in an accident, and so the mom's pregnant, and as soon as she has that child, we'll have that child from now until 2047.
Wow! So
that infinite time horizon kind of informs how the foundation frames its effort. We've been very fortunate, blessed with donors who've been very, very good to us, corporate donations from a lot of different sectors, largely the defense sector, who does business with US SOCOM, but other businesses as well. So we've been able to keep up with the costs, and we look at just that liability. If we never took another student on, the projection is just for college expenses would be about $123 million for those 1,100 or so kids reaching out to 2047. But our eligibility is based on the children of any special operations person who dies in the line of duty. So it could be combat, could be training, illness, accident, you name it. And the definition of line of duty is very, very broad. So it's almost to the extent where as long as they weren't committing a crime at the time of their death, they're probably going to be ruled as line of duty by the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. So that kind of informs how we look at managing our money. It's an infinite investment timeline. So, some nonprofits are 50-50 fixed income and equity. Ours is skewed more towards the equity because we're looking, again, infinite time horizon. We need to try to match that magic 7% average over the last 100 plus years in the market. If we can match that over the long term, we'll be in good shape, and we'll be able to continue to take care of these kids, especially in an event the U.S. gets involved in another conflict. Our numbers will go up. So that's kind of how we look at investment from the foundation perspective, and personally, I kind of look at my own investments that way too. The really looking at a long-term perspective, heavier on equity than on fixed income, and really not necessarily trying to beat the market. Over the long term, I'm confident that'll it'll work itself out. We'll have bad years like we did. What was it? 2022, not a great year. 23 and 24, much better. So, if we can average out about 7%, that'll be just fine.
So you were saying earlier, like you said, some or most nonprofits are about the 50-50. And like you said, you give, it's like 100% of everything. Like your main objective is getting that 7%. So how do you essentially get that ROI for other people for your company? Like what does that challenge look like for you? Or like what is like the insight or like the back end for it?
Yeah, we spend roughly $12 million a year on all the education programs and all expenses. So if we can bring in that much and keep some money in an endowment, then we'll have that cushion in case our numbers skyrocket. And so that's the goal every year, is to bring in as much money as we're spending. And of course, for us in the nonprofit world, something like 35-40% of donations come in the last 45 days of the year.
Right.
That's pretty typical. And, so we do rely on that to some extent. Now, our model's a little bit different than some others. We don't spend any money on advertising. If somebody wants to donate a billboard space or something, awesome, that's great. But we don't pay for any advertising on TV or print. And it's been a conscious decision by the board. Several times over the last 45 years have decided, no, we don't want to spend money on that. We want as much of the money going to the programs, the education programs as possible. One slightly different program that we have as well is immediate financial support to severely wounded, ill, and injured special operations personnel. Mm-hmm. And that's a $6,000 check to the families of personnel who are hospitalized away from home. And that allows them to, pay bills that they incur because of that hospitalization, flights to get there, putting the dog in the kennel, flying grandma in to help take care of the kids, all those sorts of things. And then if they're in hospital for an extended period, measured in months, not weeks, we can always send another check. So that's a much smaller program in terms of money that we spend than the education programs, but it's another thing that in the event of a conflict, those numbers would certainly rise.
Right. I mean, like you said, right now the future is a little bit teetering, right? I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with the wars outside of here. There's a lot of different conflicts with the different nations, but it sounds like that you guys are very diligent and you guys understand that there could be other conflicts in the future. So, as you were saying that the majority or half of your donations come in the last 45 days, how do you overcome that in the beginning of the year? Like you say, you don't do advertisements, so it's a little bit more of the word of mouth. So how are you able to really keep up with the projections of your business?
Right. Yeah. And we definitely, I watch that very closely because at the end of the year, don't want to have too much cash sort of idle, not earning anything.
Right.
But our expenses are pretty high in December, January because colleges want their spring term tuition and room and board and all that. So the first couple months of the year, January, February, we'll usually spend a little more than we bring in. So we have to start out the year with some money in the bank to make sure that we can weather those first couple months. And then about March, another source of funding kicks in, and that's events, golf tournaments, road races, things that people run on our behalf to raise money for the foundation. So that cycle sort of begins in March and goes all the way through mid-November. And so my boss, the president and CEO, General Hutmacher, will be on the road 75% of the time, at those events, raising money, dinners, you name it, all kinds of things to help bring in the kind of the cash flow to get us through. The next big surge is late July, August, when the colleges want their fall term money and things like preschool and private school tuition assistance. The schools want their money for the whole year up front then. So we have to go into July, August with some cash on hand to be able to kind of weather that big flood.
Yeah, I can only imagine because, everything's just getting just like expensive, right? I mean, colleges are always asking more and more. So I bet keeping up with that, the cash on hand, being able to have those sponsorships ready and having the donations ready can be a challenge. So like overcoming challenges often teaches us, about our strengths and areas for growth. And like, can you also share us how like you approach this both your career and your personal life?
Sure. Yeah. And like currently we're always looking for networks, new donors. We have a program that we started. It was General Hutmacher's idea. Started it about 5 years ago, called Ambassadors, and there's about more than 70 of them. But every one of them brings to bear their network, their connections, the people, the businesses, their own personality in some cases, where it's a broad range of different career fields and people, and geographically dispersed as well. So we're relatively well known in places where there's a large special operations footprint, like say San Diego with the SEALs, Virginia Beach with the SEALs, North Carolina with Green Berets, Florida with Air Force Special Ops. But you get outside some of those geographical areas and people aren't, they've heard of SEALs, they've heard of Green Berets, Rangers, they know what all that is, but they really, it's not as personal. So that's where these ambassadors help tell the story, get the message out. And again, we don't pay for the advertising, so we're relying on these personal networks, their social media contacts, all that kind of thing. Another point on that, we call it owned media, earned media. We own our website, we own our social media accounts, and that's our way of getting the message out to people. Earned media is getting on newscasts, things like that
Right.
around Veterans Day, Memorial Day, kind of your traditional veterans type holidays, and getting word out on who we are and what we do and who we serve, and really, the students telling their own stories is the most powerful, or the surviving spouse telling a story about how their family, thrived after losing that service member. So in a lot of ways, we're really proud of the personal touch with these families, and that's we have to maintain that. It's a very personal relationship with them. There's no application process. We reach out to them and say, here's who we are. You're eligible for all these programs, and really look at each individual student as a unique case. We also have unlimited funding for students with learning disabilities.
Oh.
So whether that's specialized tutors,
Mhm.
A/B testing, executive coaching, all those kind of things. So, it's just the whole point is to try to give that student every opportunity to have a meaningful career to them. So we don't try to drive them in any particular skill. If they want to go to trade school, we'll send them there.
Right.
So that's a challenge, is managing 1,100 separate, unique kids who all have different aptitudes, skills, abilities, and try to optimize the potential for each one of those kids. So it's definitely a passionate endeavor. Really, for me, it's personal, because I knew some of these kids' dads before they were killed.
Mhm.
And so, and it's personal for me too, because I know it could be my two kids that this foundation is taking care of if I was the one who didn't come home. So everyone working here, is very personally invested in the mission, and it goes back to how we treat money. Is that any waste would be taking away from those kids. That's the way we look at it. Like, everything has got to always focus right back in on that core mission of what we're doing for those families.
Right. It's, some businesses run off of investments. Some businesses run off of just sheer throwing money at it. But what I like about this business is that, its foundation, it's really about the heart. I think that you can hear it, like you said, it's more the emotional aspect, and being able to really put yourself in in the shoes, and being able to have that good, perception. It really shows. It's good to have people who are willing to really put themselves in a position to help others. It's especially nowadays, these tough times are making it hard, right? I mean, some people are trying to look out for others while other people are struggling, and they can't do that. But the fact that you have an organization who is willing to give that lending hand really shows how much they care. Like you said, it's been 100 years. I mean, you don't have a foundation that's living for or operational or doing well in 100 years for nothing. And it shows that you have that handle and that navigation of the business, and you're overcoming those challenges. And I think that it definitely shows. Thank you for putting your best foot forward and showing nothing less.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's an honor to be here and to be able to stay connected with the special operations community. We're a few miles from MacDill Air Force Base, which is here in Tampa, where U.S. Special Operations Command is. So great working relationship with them. They notify us when there's a loss of a service member, and we kind of take it from there. So U.S. Special Operations Command, my experience over my 30 years is unique within the military. It's small. It's only about 75,000 people, something like that, out of the whatever, 1.2
Mhm.
million in Department of Defense. But the focus is on the people, and by extension, the people's families,
Right.
because, seen it too many times. If families aren't taken care of, you lose the soldier, sailor, airman, marine,
Right.
because at some point you got to keep the priorities straight and take care of the family. So US SOCOM has been very good at taking care of families.
Well, and it comes to show it doesn't matter how big you are, it's about the impact that you bring.
Mhm.
So it's people care about the numbers, but it really matters about the impact that you bring to not only the families, but how you're able to pay it forward. That's one of my favorite movies is Pay It Forward, and it definitely is something that a lot of people think should watch again or who haven't seen it. I definitely recommend watching it. It's a good movie. It really shows that an act goes a long way. It's a snowball effect. And I really love how you're bringing that into your business model for 100 years. It's never changed. Like you said, they had 45 years ago, they were thinking about doing advertising, but they knew what they were doing was great and they didn't need anything outside of it. So I think that's a really great thing to have, to stick with something that's great and not change it, you know? So,
Yeah, and the beginning, it was 45 years ago with at Desert One, but it started with 17 kids, who
mm,
had lost their fathers on that airstrip, and it started out with just college education. And
yeah,
over time, as the foundation grew and had more resources, the board of directors is always asking what else, within the education space. And
right.
so it grew over time. Eligibility grew to include training deaths and then all line of duty deaths. Education programs kind of started with college, and then we had preschool in there. And then after COVID, realized a lot of the parents were paying out of pocket. And these are predominantly single parents out of pocket for private schools. So the board decided to help out with that. The tutoring's been around for about 10 or so years now. So it's always, what else can we do to optimize the potential for these kids? And, keeping in mind that they're high risk kids, they've had a significant emotional event.
Hmm.
Most are in single parent families after the loss. Some remarried, but a lot of them are single parent families.
Yeah.
And some of them know other kids like them who have lost a parent. A lot of them don't. And so it's really important that we connect with them at that personal level and work individually with them, because every single kid is different. I mean, I've got two of my own, and they're two totally different kids, and so it's like that for every family. We have one family with 9 kids. There's 9 different kids. They're all different.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where you have to really put yourself in their shoes. And I'm glad that, like I said, I'm glad that you're able to do that. And it's one of those hard topics that you have to really look forward and knowing how to really help them. But
Yeah.
as we talk about personal growth and planning, I know it's one of those things to where it's really hard to really foresee that after you know a loved one has passed away. But in your own life, how do you, like, I remember you said you try to make your own same cash on cash with 7%. Do you see on how you apply that to your other investments in the future, or how do you apply that for your own personal for retirement?
Yeah. Well, see, I'm old enough to where my military retirement plan is basically a percentage of my active duty base pay
Right.
for as long as I've got a heartbeat. So that's unusual. And military doesn't do it that way anymore because it was unsustainable. I think at one point the Army was spending over half its budget on just pay and retirement.
Right.
So it was unsustainable, but I fell under that old program. So I'm in a sort of a unique category, and my wife was active duty military for 28 years as well. So we have those two retirements literally will go on as long as we have heartbeats. And so that's unique. For most people don't have that, or a pension that works like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that allows me to invest a little differently. I don't have to necessarily, I'm going to have that cash flow
Right.
no matter what, unless, something horrific happens to the US government, and then we'll have bigger problems than that anyway. So,
Yeah.
So that allows me to kind of take that long term. And one of my kids I've got through college, the other one's a freshman. So, that money's set aside. We set aside that money when they were born, the 529 plans. So, kind of looked at everything that way. I've been investing, or I invested in IRAs and all those different things. Really, it might sound kind of old fashioned, but always save more than you spend. Don't spend money you don't have.
Right.
Which, yeah, never having a balance on a credit card, all those kind of things. And then pay yourself first, which teach my daughter, pay yourself first, put the money away for retirement, get the matching from your employer, all those things, optimize all that, and look at what you have left as your discretionary income that you can do things with, and budget from there. And it's worked out, pretty well for me.
Well, I mean, like I said, like it might be old fashioned to you, but I feel like that being able to save more and spend less and just buy the necessities is something that Americans don't do now, right? I mean, we're in a national deficit where people are just wanting to spend money just to look fashionable. They want to do it to please out the crowd, but it's not really, not really sustainable. So I think a lot of people need to understand that hardship right there. So,
yeah, and again, I'm old enough. My parents were both Depression era kids, so that's kind of the mindset that I grew up was their Depression era mindset, and certainly living within your means,
right.
And so that kind of it's just ingrained. And I grew up in a small town in South Dakota, so fancy is a relative term, yeah, there wasn't a lot of fanciness there.
Yeah, I'm from Tennessee, so I definitely understand. When I went to other states, it's seeing all these crazy, like even people who are well off never had, crazy cars. They had a good old pickup truck. So, but that's for another story for another time. But as we're wrapping up, what exciting plans or initiatives do you have that's in the works for about the next 6 to 12 months? If you don't mind, just giving us a little snapshot of that.
Yeah, we've definitely got a lot of pretty neat events coming up. A couple big dinners, one here in Tampa on the 1st of May, and one in October in Dallas. It's always a big deal. Okay. Cole Hauser from Yellowstone played Rip on Yellowstone. He's one of our directors, and he kind of hosts that dinner in Dallas. So it's always a big affair. And then just a lot of other events throughout the summer, stuff like a long range precision marksmanship competition where guys are shooting from one mountain to another, and that's crazy, over a mile away, and stuff like just really neat stuff out there that the fundraising side is really your imagination's the limit. So we have all those things coming up. And then for me personally, the highlight of the year, well, for our entire office, is when we bring rising high school juniors here to Tampa. We're bringing them to University of South Florida for a week-long college prep program, where we walk them through the admissions process, the whole how to get into the school of your choice, or how to have the best opportunity to get in the school of your choice, how to figure out what the school of your choice is, and really that's our first big touch point with these kids. They're, 16, 17 years old, and you can see the lights coming on as they start, the mystery around this whole college thing starts to kind of fade away, and their confidence grows, and they get to meet other kids like them who have lost a parent. So that's the highlight of our year. Every year, it's like our Super Bowl, Daytona 500, World Cup, all wrapped up in one.
Well, thank you very much for your time and sharing the insights and some tips with us. If you don't mind, like, what or how can our viewers, like, look up your social media? How can they contact you? Like, what's the best way, and what's the best way to really show and highlight like what you do?
Yeah, sure. Our website is www.specialops.org. So it's specialops.org, and it's got good pages on all the academic programs. It's got pages on the events coming up. It's got ways to give pages. So it's pretty all inclusive, but really just reading the students and the parents' testimonials kind of gives an idea of the impact that any donation has.
Well, thank you very much. I'll definitely hopefully our viewers are able to even possibly donate, or I know some of our viewers are actually in Tampa, so really cool if they could come down there and see the whole dinner show. If I was in Phoenix, I would love to go see that. I would love I grew up, my uncles were in the military, so it was really nice to see people who are actually doing some things and not wasting their life. I know sometimes after the military it becomes really heavy mentally. So but thank you very much, and hope you have a great day, and I hope to talk to you soon, and hope some of our viewers are able to help you with the donations.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Of course. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Pathways to Prosperity podcast. Got a success story to share? Visit pathwaystoprosperitypodcast.com/guest and apply today.